My name is John Gordon Hill, and behind me is an instrument that I own that is a 1799 Joseph Kirckman Fortepiano made in London. What you need to know about forte pianos is they're the transitional instrument between a harpsichord and a modern grand. In the day, they were just called a piano, but we use the term forte piano to make that distinction. And the big difference between forte pianos and modern pianos is this has virtually no metal in it. It has no cast iron frame. It has it's an all wood instrument, basically. So it has a certain transparency, much more consciousness of the strings. It's not as loud as a modern grand, but that also gives it a lot more range in early music that you don't have to be holding the instrument back. You can really lean into it and give it what for. This is the instrument that Duo CPE will be playing on, and I'm really excited to hear what they're able to do with it. It has a history of its own. I bought it from the University of Washington, but going back in time, it first arrived in Seattle, probably as near as I can tell, around 1917, when it was imported by D.E. Frederick. People who've been in Seattle for a while will recognize the name Frederick and Nelson. And he was, I think, building a mansion in the Highlands and wanted to populate it with English antiques. So though I don't think he was a player, he brought this piano over. It was in his possession and the family's possession until the 50s, when the Padelford family, which was the successor to that, gave it to the University of Washington, where it really was not used that much and was not, when I acquired it, in playing condition. But neither had it been particularly damaged or abused. I was able to give it to Tim Hamilton, who was a brilliant restorer in Boston, who brought the piano into full concert condition, rebuilding the whole instrument and utilizing, of course, the original soundboard and everything else, but stringing it with historically correct wire and putting in the proper tuning pins and really bringing it back to the condition it would have been as a new instrument coming off the floor in the Kirckman factory. Kirckman, as a company, was the most distinguished harpsichord builder in England. They were regarded as the finest harpsichords. Jacob Kirckman arrived in London about 1738. He was apprenticed to a guy named Herman Tobel. And then when Tobel died, Kirckman married his widow, I think right after the funeral, so he inherited the firm. And then he brought in his brother Abraham, and then Abraham's son, Jacob Kirckman's nephew, was Joseph Kirckman, who was running the firm at the time this instrument was built. And this was right at the very end of harpsichords. I think Kirckman, as a company, only made harpsichords for 1 or 2 years after by the time they were building this instrument. It's got a 5.5 octave range, so it's looking toward the future from 1799. It's the kind of instrument that when a composer like Haydn encountered it, it completely altered his composition style. And I think what you'll hear is something very different than the forte pianos you might have heard before, which were Viennese instruments and had a much brighter, drier sound. The English piano is very lush and has wonderful clouds of overtones and a great deal of power. And I think that this is, hopefully people will hear more English forte pianos because they're kind of rare. There's not too many of them around. As far as we know, in terms of 18th century Kirckman forte pianos, there are 4 in the world, and this is one of them. Please enjoy it.